week, episode 32, as we go over week 10 of the NFL and prepare you for week 11. We got a jam-packed episode starring our power rankings, and of course, I'm also going to start previewing playoff teams. And we're going to start talking about potential playoff matchups this episode. So there's a lot into this episode, and stay tuned. Stay tuned because it's going to be a good episode. So to wrap up, we got to recap what happened this week. It seems like an eternity ago that the Steelers just completely thumped the fifth ranked team in the MST Power Rankings, the Carolina Panthers. But yes, that actually happened this week, among other things. So just one last notion on that last beatdown the Steelers put on the Panthers. It should be noted that this team that the Steelers have in place is better than the team that they had last year. Most notably because we fixed our inside linebacker problem with John Bostic. And maybe it's also been a culmination of players getting chemistry down with Butler. He's been, now I think in his third year with the defense. The guys have been around it. They understand it. They know their responsibilities and their roles. They swapped Sean Davis to the free safety position rather than strong safety. And they drafted a strong safety. And they also picked up a strong safety in free agency in Morgan Burnett. And Terrell Edmonds has done a fantastic job subbing in for Davis or Burnett, whoever it may be he needs to sub in for. And he comes in the our nickel package a lot and other sub packages. So that addition has made us much more versatile on the defensive side of football. In addition, Stephon Tuitt's healthy, and you're seeing the reward of all these changes and things have kind of fell in place, for the Steelers outside the Le'Veon Bell situation. We've been very fortunate so far with injuries, and we've been fortunate that everything right now seems to click. T.J. Watt showing up. Bud Dupree's turning out to be not so bad of a pick. And then, of course, we're maintaining high levels of play from Cam Hayward, and Joe Hayden has come along. Unfortunately, without Burns, if he could have made the next step and become a potential shutdown corner, maybe not completely shut down, but just a top 15, top 20 corner, I don't think that's too much to ask. He has the capability of being that, but he's going through a rough patch in his career, and that's kind of slowed us down a little bit, a teeny bit. But defensively, everything's clicking. As you can see, the Panthers have been scoring 30 points like it's nobody's business the last couple of games, and the Steelers were able to hold them to 21, and that's including one garbage time touchdown at the end of the game. So the Steelers' defense has definitely improved dramatically after learning how to cope with life without Ryan Shazier. So combine that with the offense, who's now scoring 31 points per game, a whole 11 points higher than what the Steelers' offense scored per game last year through 9 games with Le'Veon Bell, shows you how much better the offense is operating under the new offensive coordinator, Randy Fichtner. Obviously, the biggest change with that is there's no longer Martavis Bryant mouth you have to feed, and there's no longer Le'Veon Bell's mouth you have to feed, because as much as he's complaining about his usage, now he's the same guy that was complaining about not getting the ball against Jacksonville last year. So with two less egos on the offense, we can see how much more fluid the offense is. And Vance McDonald, of course, has been submersed into the offensive identity, and we can see the benefit he provides our team as well. And teams, you have to pay attention to Vance McDonald. He has decent speed on him. He can stretch the field, and he can make big plays. So really love what the Steelers have done this year. I really do believe that they are emerging as one of the best teams in the NFL. We already saw the Chiefs, and we know that we can beat them if given another shot. They played us at our worst stage of the season. Our worst point ever see is our lowest point, and they barely beat us by 5 at home. So really, I'm pretty satisfied where they're at, and there's not a team that I'm scared of. we'll see. The only team that I think could really beat us or toe to toe, head to head, personnel on paper and thought process, and that's the New Orleans Saints. So we'll get them after we play the Patriots this year. As for the Panthers, I mean, this game is a truly a setback for the Panthers in the mindset that they were beginning to believe in themselves. They were beginning to believe that they are a perennial elite team. They are a dynasty. They are a team to be reckoned with. You know, when you think of the truly great teams, you think of the Steelers and the Patriots and the Seahawks of recent and the Denver Broncos. These Super Bowl caliber teams, game in, game out, they're able to win those type of games that we saw Thursday night that the Steelers won. So yeah, obviously they played another perennial great team in the Steelers, but the Panthers want to believe that they can beat other great teams on a consistent basis, and especially in prime time when everybody's looking. And that was an opportunity they failed to seize. And I think that's what a lot of Panther Nation's feeling right now, because outside of that, if you're just looking within the scope of this season, the Panthers are in a very good position. Obviously, it would be better had they won and stayed one game behind the Saints. Now they dropped the 2 games back within the Saints. And the Saints, again, still have to play the Steelers. The Saints still have to have a few other tough games on their schedule, including 2 games against the Panthers. You can continue that faith into those games, that you know that you have divisional rival and your boys, you know, they got handled by them 3 times last year. It's time to put on your big boy pants and it's time to make this a rivalry like you did with Atlanta. But the Saints, when the Saints are hot, you know, that's the biggest thing that makes a rivalry is when both teams are good, that they're interchanging blows between each other. That's what we saw between the Patriots, the Colts, the Ravens, and the Steelers. But and even the Seahawks and the 49ers to a lesser degree, they both went to Super Bowls. But the Panthers have to become that next rivalry with the Saints, because the Falcons, I mean, it's going to go interchanging between both, but we know the Falcons are fraudulent, and we've seen that this year. They might make a late run, but there's no excuse for them being this bad. The Saints, they've really turned around. I know they had some down years as well, and that's kind of what's kept their rivalry with the Panthers from exploding so much, is that when one team is good, the other team hasn't been good. But this past 2 years, both the Panthers and both the Saints are good. It's up to the Panthers to make this a rivalry. You're going to have to find a way to win that game, and you got about 4 games before you get there. So you can still be sitting pretty at 10-3, or I think it might be 9-3 by the time you face the Saints the first time. So still, that season, a lot to play for in your season. You can still win a division, and then of course, if not, you're pretty safe when it comes to wild card. So playoffs are still in the picture, and another thing that's good is the way the Saints are playing. If you are a wild card, you're more than likely not going to have to play them the first weekend. You might get them the second weekend, but definitely not the first. So Panthers still in great shape, and they're still probably a top 5 team if we're going to be honest. All right, so other notable matchups, the Patriots and Titans game. Oh my goodness, like this was a game you salivate for, because it's just so juicy to see Brady running for his life, getting hit, throwing dirt balls. I mean, you know, we've seen this story before, right? I mean, to a certain degree, right? This is where I'm going to say the difference between what we've seen before is and what we saw this past Sunday. You cannot name another time that the Patriots were blown out 3 times in the season. 2 of those being back-to-back, 2 back-to-back blowouts. This is now week 10. Yeah, the Patriots going into a bye week, so I'll give them that much, and they're missing Gronkowski. So there is some hope for them. But this is still different because they've always missed Gronkowski. They've had instances where they had no receivers at all, but now they have Josh Gordon and they have Edelman. They have some talent on that field. They even had Sony Michel against the Titans. There's talent out there. The problem right now is that Brady is unable to provide that elite spark where he's making these elite type plays that only he can make, only Aaron Rodgers can make, only Peyton Manning in his prime could make. He's no longer making those type of plays. And that's sometimes the difference in the game, added into the fact that they don't have a dominant defense. and they're not getting turnovers the way they used to be able to get. This team is very vulnerable, and it's not that they can't correct their issues. They had a bad tackling day as well against Tennessee. That was a really the biggest problem that I drew from that game was their tackling was very poor. But that can be fixed. That can be fixed. You can always coach tackling, and I think they will fix that. So the defense won't be as leaky, but it's not going to be that good. Let's just admit that. It will never be that good. The problem is whether or not Brady can ever perform consistent elite performances. And he used to be able to do it all the time, game in and game out. And now it seems as if when he goes on the road is where he's really struggling, the same way we had road Ben. But now Ben is not as old as Brady, obviously. So we'll see if they lose at home to the Vikings. That's the game I'm looking at because it's at home against a good opponent. If they lose that game and it's because Brady can't throw, because they're going to need Brady to score at least 2 to 3 touchdowns a game. A 1 touchdown game for Brady isn't that great, and it's not what they need to win Super Bowls because that's what they've always won Super Bowls on is on the arm of Tom Brady, not by running the football. Sony Michel's a good running back, but that's not something they're going to be able to rely on. So if they lose to Minnesota and or lose at Miami right before they play Pittsburgh, they're going to be a world of trouble as we talk about the playoff scenarios later on. Losing one of those games would threaten their ability to get even a 3 seed in the AFC. I mean, there's a lot of football to be played, so we're going to see what the Houston Texans are going to do, but they're right on the Patriots' heels at 6-3, a half a game back for New England 7-3. They can actually tie that up this week. Games around the league. Obviously, the Rams handled business against Seattle. That actually came through by Dante Fowler, the strip sack at the end of the game to seal it. He actually had played a hand in the Seahawks scoring earlier in the game, so I'm not going to give him too much glory because at first I was like, dang, I wish we would have had him. But then I was like, okay, this is the same guy who screwed up earlier. You can't make boneheaded plays in the playoffs. They won as well as the Chargers against teams that you would expect them to win. So at this point, they're just further legitimizing the Charger threat. And the Rams are still the team to beat, even though they got a little brush up with the Saints. They got to figure out how they're going to play without Cooper Kupp because he was a big part of their offense. But they found a way to win Sunday. That looks forward, of course, to this week's mega matchup between the Chiefs and the Rams. Definitely going to preview that in depth as we get closer to the game time. But other than that, that covers your top 6 teams. Then you also have the Bears held serve. They won their matchup. And the Texans as well. So right now, Redskins, I thought that they would lose a matchup against the Buccaneers. They did not, so that makes an interesting battle this week between the Texans and the Redskins. Two surprise results that came out this weekend was the Cowboys beating the Eagles at home on Sunday Night Football during their defense of the Super Bowl that they won last year. And that's just remarkable. I mean, who would have thought the sorry-ass Cowboys would be able to pull this off? And they did it. And you know what? I tip my hat to the Cowboys because there's nothing better than taking a crap on your rival's parade as they're trying to continue enjoy your defeats and you just crap on the table, That's basically what the Cowboys did. And Eagles fans, I know ill will towards you, but you can't lose to the Cowboys at home on Sunday Night Football the year after you just won the Super Bowl while you're vying for another NFC East divisional title and they're on the outside looking in. You just let them back in. They're back in the race now. So, I mean, you get another shot against them in Dallas. The Jaguars and Colts. Now, this game I didn't understand. Nobody would really be interested in it, and that's why I couldn't find it on TV anywhere. But the Colts were able to beat the Jaguars to put them at the cellar of the AFC South at 3-6. That's huge. I mean, they're pretty much out of the playoffs if you really want to talk about. I mean, this game coming up, Pittsburgh goes into Jacksonville. That's an elimination game. That's an elimination game for Jacksonville. You can't get 7 losses with 5 games left to play, 6 games left to play, you're done. You're just done for. Season's over with. So that was a result. I was surprised. I expected the Jaguars to beat them and show that they are truly a playoff team, which they were unable to do. I was a little surprised how close the Cardinals and Chiefs game ended up. Uh, the Cardinals were only down by 6 or 7 points late in that ball game and managed to lose by 12. Also, the Browns and Falcons. Of course, this is what the Falcons do. This is what they do, and this is why I always talk crap about the NFC because it's not only the Falcons that do it, the Packers do it. We've seen the Vikings do it to a certain degree. The Buccaneers. I mean, the Saints do it. The Saints, some years they're just crap, and it's just like teams go up and down so much that it's hard to respect them as a top team when they finally have a good record. Is it just a result of the teams you're playing and sheer luck, or are you actually a legit team? Legit teams stick around for more than 1 or 2 years, as you've seen with the Steelers and the Patriots. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up our coverage of the Week 10. But without further ado, let's go into these power rankings. Here, of course, I could not make a change. Kansas City Chiefs, still #1 team, best team in football right now. The Saints proved a very, very strong case after they destroyed the Bengals at home. I can't deny that was impressive the way they beat them down. They scored, 53, 54 points on them. Nope, 51. Okay, so they only got 51 and still scored 52 on a better team. So it just so happens that I do take that as more impressive. Although the Saints did it outside, which for their team definitely legitimizes them because they continue to win in a dominating fashion outdoors, something that they haven't really been able to do before. But I predicted this would get messy because the Bengals have always struggled with stopping the run. If it's just a good running team, you can run on the Bengals. And that was no different this year. I definitely saw a whooping coming through for them. And #3, we still have the Rams. They are still a solid team without Cooper Kupp winning the Seattle and won convincingly. That's not always an easy feat to do. #4 comes in your very own Pittsburgh Steelers. Here we go. The Steelers have been one of the hottest teams in the NFL over the last 5-6 weeks. It's being very impressive in their victories. Now averaging over 31 points per game over the entire of the season. I'm sure those numbers will be much higher if you're looking during their win streak. So, yeah, Steelers are surging just ahead of the Chargers, who come in at 5th, as the Chargers have had somewhat of a lighter schedule. Not having the success that the Steelers had last year helped them have a much easier schedule, as they still have yet to face. They will face the entire AFC North for the most part. The Steelers, Ravens, and Bengals to finish off the season, including the Chiefs, so to get another crack at getting some impressive wins on their resume. Coming in at #6 is the Patriots, who, it was really tough to say if the Patriots or Panthers should be ahead. The Patriots do have one more win on their record that helps. But really, I put the Patriots at 6 just because the Panthers were destroyed, believe it or not, worse than the Titans destroyed the Patriots. And while the Panthers were on the road, I mean, it was just more deflating, I think, for a Panthers fan. So 7 is probably a little more appropriate. If you're a Patriots, you're like, okay, they still can get Gronk back. They're going to figure things out. Panthers will figure things out, but they may not be a divisional winning team. Another reason why I keep them at 7. They have an opportunity this week to go and be very impressive on the road against the Detroit Lions. If they smack around the Lions, they'll easily take the Patriots spot back and be a top 6 team as the Patriots move to the second page of the power rankings, since they have a bye week and are unable to win this week. The Texans, the remaining pretty much stays the same. Texans, Bears, Vikings, Redskins round out the 11, and then the newcomer to the group are the Tennessee Titans. Are trying to prove themselves being a legit playoff team. Once again, they try to flirt with my power rankings all the time. They win a lot of big games and they lose to a lot of crappy teams. They just had a big win, and now they have to go face against the number 8 team in the MST rankings, the Houston Texans. So we'll see how long they stay up here. But the Titans, due to their big win over the Patriots, do make it in the power rankings as the Cincinnati Bengals drop out. The Green Bay Packers have stayed out too. They're trying to get back in, but there just isn't a lot of room right now. So you just got to keep winning, and maybe the Packers will be able to make it. And the Cowboys have been oppressive last week. They get another good challenge at Atlanta this week, which is, I still think, a kind of interesting game between these two teams that are fighting to stay on the bubble. All right, so a new segment that we're adding on to the show we're going to cover weekly is called Playoffs. Playoffs! And this is where we're talking playoff implications of the upcoming matchups, and we're looking forward to one of the best postseasons in professional sports, the NFL playoffs. So first off, you got to start with the crown jewel matchup next week that does have playoff implications on it. But we got Big Germ over here on the phone who's going to talk about the implications for the Chiefs and Rams with their upcoming matchup, now that's been moved to LA on Monday night.
Well, for starters, I think that the Chiefs, it's all about staying on pace for the number one seed. If you're the Chiefs, you want the playoffs to go through Kansas City. And right now, you're sitting pretty for the number one spot. You're coming for that number one spot. But, you know, the Steelers have 2 losses, but the Chiefs have already beat the Steelers. But the tricky thing about that is the Steelers have a tie. So if the Chiefs somehow loses 2 games, the Steelers will overtake them if they win out. So if you're the Chiefs, you kind of want to prove yourself here. If you're the Rams, you want to keep pace with the Saints. It's both teams just trying to keep pace and further legitimize themselves as the best team in the NFL. So it's huge playoff implications as, you know, the Rams could fall further behind the Saints and the Chiefs could be in risk of the Steelers catching them.
Yeah, and I think one thing that is also important to mention is that the playoff implications for the Chiefs is just having another sample size of showing their dominance, because for them they've been a little tortured in the past in having these teams that have been able to beat the Steelers or the likes of the Patriots before. They've done that, and what they've done is only gone on to lose in the playoffs. So beating the Rams would go a long way for the Chiefs' confidence. And I think if you're the Rams, it's probably not as big of a game for you as it is the Chiefs.
We also got to remember that the Chargers are 7-3, and so it doesn't take a whole lot for the Chiefs to slip up and be in danger of the Chargers overtaking them for the division. So you suddenly go from the number 1 position to number 5, like the Chargers are right now. So it's very important that they keep winning and keep pace.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point. Is that the Chargers are only 2 games back with a game to play against Kansas City. So a loss here would definitely only put them under 1 game behind with a game to play, so that the Chargers would be able to control their destiny as they look to win the AFC West. But good point, Big Germ. We now have the Packers and Seattle Seahawks are going to be your Thursday night matchup in Seattle. This matchup has tons of playoff implications on it, as the loser is probably out of the playoffs. So we've got our playoff picture up right now for the NFC, as this is an NFC matchup. And as you can see, the Packers are the first team out, and the Seahawks would be the third team out, as they're chasing that wild card spot right now, which is being held by the Panthers and Vikings. Obviously, the Packers have a lot to do with the Vikings making them, as they'll get another game against them, who's the current 6th seed. And at 5 losses, Seattle really can't afford another loss before they at least catch up a little bit, because you might be able to get in the playoffs at 9-7, but you're not gonna be able to get in the playoffs if you get 8 losses, because the Packers and the Vikings both can go 8-7-1 and still beat you if you have 8 losses. So for Seattle, you definitely don't want to get to loss number 6 anytime soon, especially against another team that you're going to need to lose some games for you to make the playoffs.
Well, this is another reason why I don't think the NFC is as good as everybody tries to make them out to be, because these are two teams that people think they are better than they actually are. The Packers roster is a disaster. The only reason why this isn't a two-win team is because of Aaron Rodgers. And the same thing with Seattle. The only reason why they even remotely have a chance is because they have Russell Wilson. So you have two quarterbacks propping up their teams that otherwise would just be a mess. Um, and so they are vying for the playoffs here. And honestly, Jeffrey, where is this game being played?
Seattle.
I have to take Seattle. But they have a lot of young talent on the team, but still they struggle a lot, and you saw it against the Rams. They was trying to run the ball until they got behind, and then it's like, well, Russell bail us out. And the same thing with the Packers. They tried to run the ball, but they need Aaron Rodgers to bail them out and make amazing plays all the time. And so if the two quarterbacks aren't playing out of the mind, these teams don't have a chance to win on any Sunday. So the fact that these teams could make the playoffs, I don't think they're going to win a playoff games this year because they're just not very good teams.
Okay, so that being said, we move over to the Bengals and Ravens, who will be playing in Baltimore with huge playoff implications written all over this game, as the Ravens are still currently behind the Bengals in the AFC North standings due to the fact that the Bengals did beat the Ravens and they have a game above them as well, as they're sitting at 5-4, and the Ravens are looking to even up that series, especially given the get a split with the Bengals. A win here would put you at 5-5 and them at 5-5 with both a game on each other. This game right here would looks like it's going to be the battle for the 6th seed if you really look at the standings around. Yes, Tennessee is also vying for that 6th seed at 5-4. They will be the next closest team. But if the Bengals do get a loss, that would definitely put the Titans in pole position, as they will be firmly in the 6th seed as the only AFC team with only 4 losses that is not winning a division. Moving on to the other two matchups, I'll talk about one. I'll let Big Germ handle the other one. We have the Eagles playing at New Orleans Saints, and this is just a horrific situation to be in if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan. They are now on the outside looking in for the playoff picture. As you can see here, they are pretty far down the list when it comes to the wild card. So their only hope is keeping pace with the Redskins, who now have a 2-game lead on the Eagles thanks to the Cowboys beating the Eagles. And now they face the probably one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in football right now, the New Orleans Saints, on the road in New Orleans. Well, this is not a prediction show, but as you can tell how I set that up, you can tell where I'm leaning on this. But that has huge playoff implications, as it can all but erase the Eagles' hopes of making the playoffs. You take a loss there, even with Washington only having, they have 3 losses, and it's the Redskins. Things aren't going to get easier for Philadelphia. You just lost to the Cowboys. You have to play them again, and then you still got to beat the Redskins twice. So that's huge playoff implications. This is your season, Philadelphia. Can you beat the Saints and shock the world again? Because you need this win very badly. Now, another playoff implication heavy game is the Vikings and Bears. This is for the control of the North. If the Vikings are able to win this game, they will take control of the NFC North at 6-3-1 and put the Bears at 6-4. Basically, they'll still be ahead of the Packers, but the Vikings have an opportunity to make a huge statement Sunday Night Football in Chicago. You win that game, you can almost validate Kirk Cousins' contract because I don't know if Case Keenum will be able to go up against that ferocious Bears defense and win in Chicago in prime time. This is something that you need an elite quarterback for, and you put the Batman sign up in the air, and that's the cue for Aaron Rodgers, for Ben Roethlisberger, for Tom Brady, for Drew Brees to come through in a clutch and get you a clutch win on the road against a divisional opponent that you know very well, so you know how to beat them. Obviously, Kirk Cousins just got into this rivalry, but he's getting paid $84 million. This is what you pay a guy for. Come through and win this game because this is going to go a long way towards winning the division. It won't be over by any stretch either scenario. I do think the Bears have the best opportunity because if they need to serve at home anyways. But if you get this game and you go to 7-3, you push the Vikings down to 5-4-1. Um, that's pretty much winning the division as well as you can get, especially looking at the way the schedule's shaping up. You know, this game would do more damage. I don't know. I want to say more damage because it goes both ways. You know, it's just a pivotal game. That's the easiest way to lay it out there. Is that it's a pivotal game, and it's going to be a completely different playoff picture if the Bears win versus if the Vikings win. Outside of those matchups, our other playoff teams are just uh, playing to keep pace. I mean, that's the name of the game. The Panthers need to keep control of their wild card, keep pace with the Saints, whether they play at Detroit. The Chargers need to handle their business at home against the Broncos to keep their same situation except with the Chiefs. The Steelers, they for the most part control their destiny now to a home bye. So every single game is a must win. If they win every single game going into the end of the season, they will control their destiny and get the number 2 seed. And that pretty much covers all the playoff. Oh, Houston Texans and the Washington Redskins. So that's one game. And then of course the the Tennessee Titans play at the Indianapolis Colts. So um, Titans have an opportunity to further eliminate the Colts. If they lose to the Colts, that will just open up a whole nother can of worms as they playing on the road against the Colts team that just had a lot of success against Jacksonville. So that's going to actually be a very interesting game to watch. And then the Texans are playing at the Redskins. So this game, of course, is battle of divisional leaders. You don't get that very often, especially between the Redskins and the Texans. But yeah, they're two divisional leaders who are looking to extend their lead in the division as the other teams in their division have very tough matchups that they have their arms and hands full. You know, whoever wins that game will win their division. I would like to say that. That's a bold statement, but whoever wins between the Houston Texans and the Washington Redskins, that team will win their respective division. All right, so I know we had a long episode, but that's all we have for you today. Other news, Bell did not show up today, so we might get you a full episode just to go over implications on who will win, and that's coming up shortly in episode 33. All right, guys, that's all for today. Peace.
Fuck.